like us to figure out our next step for taking this stuff and putting it into, reducing it to distributable form. Oh, you're going to start doing this? Okay. And so we've got discrete things here, right? The big chart, which had those issues that were sort of randomly selected by the working group, big issues. I thought that worked well, by the way.
Yeah.
I thought it really worked well. Then we've got the post-small group work, we have the evaluations, and the sign-up sheets. Are there other sort of things to put together?
Well, what was your original plan when you decided to use this format? What you were going to do with the hourly sheet were?
We were going to collect all this information and take from that our next directions as a committee, because we're in the process of forming subcommittees. So we're thinking about one being research. So it's like, what research should we look into? So using this information to kind of inform how we do that, what topics we look into, what people are pointing us towards. But I think that transcribing it to some kind of easily viewable format would be good. I can try to do, like I said earlier, like just to kind of capture how, I think it's so cool how it's laid out, so to capture that but in a more easily viewed format. Like I have a program on my computer where it's called like, the mother would be like the main issue and then daughters would come off of that. So it's a mind mapping software that could then be viewed, like we could print it out in 8.5 by 11 format. It wouldn't take up a whole room.
And it would capture all the comments?
It could capture, I mean, it would take a while to do, but, I mean, the other thing to do with it is just list, like, big heading,
right.
Smith Overlay District, bump, 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 bump. That might be more easily transferable.
Yeah, as you probably know, we got so little into this process of future search that trying to transcribe this would probably both be too time-consuming and actually not capture what connections are up here. I took the liberty, and I will take no offense if you all just put it aside, of creating a worksheet from which we can extract this information into some form. Some of it has some of the information that was in the introduction that I made. It's a little bit expanded on that. And basically what it does is it takes each issue, like you were starting to say, and puts into different categories some of the comments. So each issue won't have each category filled, but what could be interesting is what is missing then after you put the information into these worksheets, so that which part of creating a best practice is missing, which constituency isn't involved, is it an issue of timeline and planning, et cetera, et cetera. So, I realize that having suggested this step, it's a little chaotic right now.
Yeah.
And we could get lost, or you could get lost in trying to figure out what to do with this data. So that's why I decided to stop by and bring you.
So this has the parameters.
Yeah, I would take no offense if you think
No,
this is absolutely of no worth, of no value. But anyway, it's a worksheet, and it might just be an interim step from which you achieve that.
Well, would you give it an example? Would you fill one of these out?
Sure. Actually, we can do it together. We can pick anyone. The hotel. So that's just it. It's like you said at the town meeting. Defining the issue is the first and critical step. And what is the issue that occurred there in terms of best practice? I mean, again, that's only the issue that gets us into what the underlying practices that might be deficient or non-existent are. But I think using them as case studies might be a way to get at that eventually.
That's a good format for mini case studies.
Yeah. Because then you can lay them out. It's like hotel, budget, sustainable Northampton, and you'll start to see
the
patterns.
So this would be one issue, like this would
yes.
be landfill.
So I can give you copies. I just dashed to the copy center just to have enough this morning's meeting, or I can send it to you electronically. So you would actually fill one of these out for each issue that you find here.
So, all right, well, let's walk it through quickly the landfill.
The landfill.
Well, a hotel. Hotel's fine.
Yeah. Hotel.
So that's the issue. Do we do it all together, or do we do it as
Well, he just wants to so that we're sort of on the same page before we do the exercise. So what is the issue? What is the problem? Or, what is the challenge, depending on how you want to even approach what the the matter is. Was it a problem? Was it a challenge? What was the underlying issue that provoked a response from the citizenry?
Well, there's
Well,
one.
the biggest one was that the decision on the hotel was really made through a city council subcommittee, the EDLU committee. Then it went to the city council. There were a total of under 15 people involved in the final decision-making. The public hearing happened after the decision on how much of the property, what the exact configuration of the land to be sold was. That was the first decision that came out of EDLU. The other
Actually,
decision...
No, the
can I
first
interrupt,
was-
because
Yeah.
that's not exactly correct.
Okay.
Because the first step that happened, well, the legal, let me interrupt, this is exactly why
Oh, yeah.
there's going to be different points of view
Yeah.
and different sources of knowledge. That's why different people with different points of view on it.
The issue of surplusing property, only the finance committee has the authority under our city charter to surplus property. The finance committee is the city property committee. So first of all, the city council voted took 2 votes on it in open session to surplus that land.
But the conversation
But
was very
didn't
important,
happen.
the underlying problem
saying
was
the
better.
Yeah.
But so we.
I'm just saying, I agree with what you're saying, but I don't agree with that this was made by EDLU.
No,
Because it was
you're
made
absolutely
by the
right.
city council.
You're absolutely right.
And then,
It was...
then EDLU and the finance committee, both, actually the finance committee is the only committee that actually took a vote on the
What's
RFP.
EDLU?
What is EDLU?
Economic Development, Housing, and Land.
But long before it became any committee, was an underlying feeling that there was better use for this land.
Yes.
Right.
And that discussion never, in my mind, because I was a city councilor through all that period, that never was defined and then
Yes.
hearings held. Groups met, but there was no general.
Brownfields grant was applied for, they got the money to clean that up.
So is it a broader issue of how use
How
of
the
public
disposition of
land is
first
determined?
happened. Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing
No,
with you, Mary,
but
on...
it was more, from my point of view, the difference with how that was disposed of than how Florence Grammar or South Street were dealt with. And with those, it started at a community-based level at the very beginning before anybody decided what to do with the buildings. Whereas here, that initial, what Alex is saying, where the community sat in the room and said, or the charrette, or whatever you want to call it. We had done a downtown charrette, and in that, years ago, there was some phrase about developing brownfields, but that particular brownfields development never had that public meeting. So by the time the public knew what was going on, even though there were, votes taken, because I counted, there were only 15 people who ever were at a meeting where the final decisions were made on that process. So nobody really knew what was happening until there was the image posted. And that was real, and then had already gone through planning. People didn't really realize it had gone through planning. And Fran, who was on planning at the time, really had no idea what she was signing off on. It wasn't, so that was really, it was from the very, very first time that it was talked about that.
And the bid process, people were very upset about. There was a lawsuit about the bid.
The other issue,
Well,
Mary, I wanted to
there
add
still
is
is,
that
of
some of
course.
the context, because a lot of this stuff you're describing took place during the time that the council was debating the education use overlay district. It was all happening
Yes.
during that same period.
Yes.
So
And people were not paying attention.
if you go back and look at the meeting where the city planner came and discussed the awarding of the RFP to the hotel group, much of the public comment period was devoted to the overlay. Most people were focused on the overlay. There was a pretty long discussion by the council about the awarding of the bid. It wasn't a vote or anything, we were being briefed on it, but it's interesting the contrast, because most of the members of the public who were there weren't there to talk about the hotel, they were there to talk about something else. So, and I'm not saying I'm just saying
It's absolutely
a
true.
confluence
And it
of
was
big issues.
also the paper did nothing about it.
Mhm.
The paper they didn't even talk about what was going on at that, and that's the real, which doesn't seem to come up here very much, and I was somewhat surprised at the role of the media in the civic life.
I agree.
It
There were
doesn't-
3 or 4
I put it
architectural
somewhere.
district
Somewhere.
hearings,
Yeah,
which were never covered.
Never
I was there, and
Never
there was a single
covered.
reporter there.
yeah, and that was what was so, but it's surprising to me that it didn't come up on these
Can I just say
sheets.
something about, I think this is a really good tool, but I think it's our next
Yeah.
step. I think we do need to get back to sort of reducing this to these usable forms then including it around this kind of discussion into something like that, because we're kind of
So describe the step that's in between.
just reducing this to handout, you know.
But don't you, I'll just say one more thing,
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
because I think what just happened here, is what I was trying to capture here, because there are different points of view, and there's different sources of information that everyone doesn't have in making their decisions around this. So, the point is, the issue, the problem, the challenge, whatever you want to call it, is not the hotel, as we all know. The hotel is just the catalytic experience that brings forth
The fruit of the tree.
the underlying processes that need to be exposed or aren't there. And so it was like just what was said, the surprise that it wasn't in the public media. Well, that's, could be written up as one statement under, put your glasses on, Jason, so you can see what you wrote. I think there's a communication process. That doesn't mean just internal, that means also other types of processes that need to be either created or enhanced. I'm just saying, I think what you need to do can be done on here, because the debate you have to have as a committee is what exactly is the underlying issue, is the first step.
I'm just not certain that, I think a lot of what we just talked about is our own information, it's not what we see here.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
And that's, I'm trying to capture and respect our public process, and how do we capture that and inform our own information? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, and I think you're absolutely right, that the two have to be distinguished on any kind of work you do, that whether it's color-coded, that this was what was in the public meeting, and then you color-code what the committee's additional information that you add to that category or to that issue, whatever, is an important point. You're absolutely
So
right.
you're just saying we need to transfer this data before we get to this point into more readable format?
Yeah, I think so, but you
I'm
don't
not
think
sure
it's
there is a
necessary?
more readable format. I think we preserve the original document, and when you want to discuss this, you roll it out.
Because there is a lot of time in
I could take
transferring this.
photographs of it,
And just,
we could load them on our
That
website.
would be great.
So you could have a photo gallery.
I think we still need to make a really practical document that we can distribute with this information. And someone had mentioned doing it around, first starting with the issues, but, and then all the comments that were in about that, but some of the, comments overlap, so we should probably have a different, document for just the overlapping comments and where they came from.
I'm just saying that there's going to be a lot of time in the transfer, so like to really utilize our time wisely. So I think taking pictures of it is a great idea.
Me
We
too.
could post it up on the website, people can see it.
But
There's no
take a
need to have to
picture of
go
this
through
then.
and read
But
it.
almost anything you do to that, Jesus, you're going to edit. The decision to the size of the print that you put down, what you put as a main issue, the side issues, you're going to start editing it unconsciously. You're going to organize it in a way that makes sense to you.
I actually just want to write everything.
Well, that's okay. Well, that's
No,
a
but I
possibility
think what
too.
he's saying is, where do you start? The first thing you list, you could,
What's the first thing?
what's the first thing you list, and,
You go from left to right, and you start in the middle of the topic.
Well,
Well, I don't actually think it'd take too much time. I mean, let's say I just said, I'll do landfill, hotel, Pulaski Park, I put the top Pulaski Park, and I just start writing down everything
I mean,
that's in here. And if there's an arrow that goes over to hotel too, I would put it also under hotel, but.
It's clearly going to take time, but I think that's necessary. I think that these comments, distributed, and made available to everybody is valuable. And, I think we should look at this exercise in the forum as more than just serving our purposes, but also.
Well, I think what other people are saying is to take a picture of this, and we can have it on the website, and people can just view this.
let people,
In the colors, in the shapes, in the
That's
bold,
part
and the
of it.
small, in the way it's put up here.
This is a model of a different way of getting information, so it's the information, but it's also how we got it. So to have that photo up there is saying people, look, they did something different, it's not a Word document.
Some of the comments.
It was something that, we got this in a very participatory way, so this, I think, is the best practice for generating information.
can you take photographs of this that will be pretty clear so you'll pick up just about everything? Be able to read everything?
Adam, you had photos on your blog, and they were very clear.
Yeah.
They're readable.
Are they things that you can zoom in on, or?
Sure, there are better cameras, so, if you really want.
Well, no, I mean,
Really?
once the document's, actually, you take a picture of it, can you zoom in on it on the computer?
If you had a JPEG viewer,
feel like, you know, to even do this, I would still like to see in one place on one sheet all the comments here.
So let's do both. If there's the energy around doing it. I mean, would you volunteer to photograph this and put this
Sure.
up?
It's no problem.
So then if we
The city
each,
website's still having some glitches about uploading stuff, but whenever they get that resolved, yeah.
so if we each took a topic and just recorded it, we could do it pretty quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm volunteering to be a transcriber.
So then I just want to get just the overview of what we're going to accomplish today, or what we hope to. You said, Wendy, you have to leave around 10?
Yeah, well, I have my meter and I have to be in there.
I have to go fill my meter. I'm gonna go right now, and I'll be right
Where's your
back.
car?
My car is right out in front, fairly near the bus stop. And by,
That way?
yeah, it's in front of,
Oh, you know, I'm not gonna worry.
Actually, you know what, I have to go, so if you just tell me what your car looks like, I'll put money in. That way you don't have to leave.
it's a red van
Red van.
with, homemade wooden rack on the top.
I should
And a
do.
lawnmower in the back. But I don't have any money.
I have quarters.
Yeah, I'll give you a
I
quarter.
have my
But do you need money too in yours?
Yeah, might as well.
What does your
It's
look
a
like?
black Nissan.
On this side of the street?
Yes, it's kind of down. Nissan Altima has.
Okay.
On, Bush's last day bumper
Thanks for
sticker.
these, Jason. And stay involved,
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I think this is really great, and I expect that we will work. I just feel like I would like to reduce it.
Yeah, it makes it more.
Okay.
As well as the small group, is that the small group stuff back
Yeah.
there?
Yes.
As well as everything.
Yeah.
Anything that wasn't on a handout, everything that actually, Jason had put on the, you know, the agenda, all of that, it would be nice to have that all in place. But I think this is good and might be a better way than going through an extensive,
Yeah.
what would we call it, case study.
I just have a quick question. Is this part of the topic best practice committee, or was
No,
this
that's
its own?
new media technology.
Oh,
So what if we take like the next 20 minutes, record this, everybody can pick a topic or two, transcribe it, and then I think then another thing we need is somebody to make a report back of what we did today to the best practices committee.
my feeling is that this is gonna take longer than 20 minutes to record even between the people here.
We're not gonna do it now.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna take it home and do it. Then that would
Oh, I was thinking we would just do it now.
sit and write it up.
Yeah.
Oh.
Each have a piece of paper and just, now that it's all out.
Okay.
Because are we gonna cut it and each person take?
No, I don't think we
Can't
should
do
cut
that.
it. I don't think we want to.
Well, I'm willing to, I'm willing to take home these three things.
Okay.
And transcribe them and,
Which three?
Pulaski Park and, there is a cutoff, I think, that does work here, but it's
What
way
if
down
we took-
here.
What if you took these sheets, Wendy, since they're already?
Yeah, these three.
Cut off.
I'll take these three.
I don't know, I'm really for not cutting it.
Well, these aren't, these were
Right.
each cut.
Right.
And if you guys wanna sit here and do that, I don't.
Yeah.
Okay, how many
But
of us are
I'll
gonna
take
be
this time.
I can
Well-
stick around for a little while.
Me, you,
And I'm
This-
willing
this
to
one.
take the small group stuff too,
Okay.
if you want. Is that it over there?
Yeah.
And do we
This
wanna,
is the evaluation forms.
do we want those to be, does it make sense to consolidate these?
Well, we could just keep them in a folder and, have everybody look at them.
There are a few.
It's mainly just about how we ran.
Are there more in there?
No, that was it.
I mean, I think this is just for the committee to
Yeah, it's
look
just
at,
really for
figure out what
committee.
you did right, what didn't work.
Okay. So there's that piece, and then the last piece, I think, is what do we do with all of those email contacts that we got, the sign-ins, that people wanted more information about what we were doing. David, you said that you can invite them to the Google group?
Yeah, there's a way that you can add them to our email list and send them an invitation to join the Google groups.
So we should
Would you
probably
be
do
willing
that, but also
To
keep
take
them.
that list and do that?
Yeah, I can do that. I can just put it into an electronic form.
Willing to do that?
Yeah. I don't know if we actually got a complete sign-in list, just looking at the list, because it looks like there's,
I don't think I signed it.
looks like there's less people on the sign-in list than there, but.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's all we have.
We
And
tried.
that's what we have.
Other things, like all the other stuff you had on.
This is the agenda.
Okay, so that's pretty much, okay.
So who wants to make the report to the Best Practices Committee about what we did in our next steps?
Well, I was gonna type it up in the, like, minute form, so that's,
Okay.
I mean, just in terms of what we agreed to do.
The smoker discussion.
That's our, ground rules.
Was that on the agenda?
No.
Okay, I'll type it up.
Okay.
Oh, Bonnie has a copy.
Oh, yeah, I might not be able to transcribe it.
I think we should talk about the overall rate.
Yeah.
That's why I don't wanna spend time here transcribing it, but I guess I'm willing to take,
Well, I think
I don't
both
believe
things
in
are
it, but
important.
I'm willing if the committee votes, and that'll be a vote. If you're gonna ask somebody to do this, I think we're gonna vote on it. I'll roll it up and I'll take it home and transcribe them. It's a couple of days, it's a long day.
Yeah.
I'm
we could
willing
do
to do that, but I want us to talk, I don't think that that's important as talking about what we're gonna do with this material.
I think both things are equally important. I mean, I really think this is important as a document.
I do too, and that's the,
But I don't think it's any, I mean, I think the importance of it is satisfied by the taking of the pictures of the document. The organizing of the information would be helpful to your committee to see what trends are apparent. But you can't really see it like that. And that, you know, the other thing you could do is each person go around and come up with their own ideas about what are the trends they see. But it's a lot of information to try and understand, and I think it's more of a starting point for your committee rather than necessarily having word for word down of what everybody said. You've got that down by the photographs.
right.
So you're saying we don't really need to transcribe everything?
It depends on how you want to deal with the information.
Yeah, to me, it'd be easier to see the trends if it were transcribed.
That's absolutely true. I mean, we did a project once where we interviewed a number of people. We transcribed everything, cut each sentence out, and put each, took them apart and put them under certain categories. It was a long, labor-intensive process, but you could do something similar, or you can look and see what are there apparent trends. And, but on some level, it's apples and oranges, too, because the hotel was one process, the Meadows was another. You learn the positive from the positive stuff that came out of the Meadows. At least that's what came up in our small group, was that the Meadows seemed to be, the second Meadows project seemed to be, everybody thought that was a good process. Whereas it's not that Pulaski Park was one process, the Hilton was another process. So, it's more the trends that are there that I think you need to look for.
Yeah, I would rather spend the time filling out this worksheet, but I understand that if people really want this transcribed, I'd be willing to do the work to make that happen.
That's the reason why, to digest the trends, to really see where the connections are,
Yes,
to organize the input in a way that's digestible, that's all. Not digestible means.
I agree, but I think that it's more, that this process, it makes it more digestible, than just the transcribing. I'm willing to do both, and I'm willing to help you if it's the will of the committee to do this. I think that it will lose a considerable amount of its meaning when it's transcribed. If that's all you look at, you won't understand.
No, that's just a piece of it. I think this is really good. I think this will take some time to do something like this. I'd like to look at it and see if it could be, tweaked a bit. There's not enough room here.
Maybe something else that we could do is, it seemed like it was really working when we took the hotel topic. If we had everybody here, so we had people that were on the city council when it happened, and people that were involved with writing this, then we could just look at it and create this document.
I don't think they overlap. As I said, our whole discussion had nothing, when we started looking at this and talking about this, didn't engage these things. So, I think it's a step by step.
Yeah.
We'll do this, and we can do this as well, but we need to talk about it, because I think in looking at this, this would be an alternative to doing a full-blown A to Z case study on one thing or two things. that's what Mrs. Moore was suggesting. Also, I wanted to talk a bit about the meeting, just debrief the meeting a little bit. Basically thought it was very good, overall, and I said that at the meeting. The one, do different, I would have liked. I felt there was a little bit of chaos around the small group. It was unclear what the question was to be addressed. Getting multiple messages from multiple people about how to do it. I mean, the end product was, I think, useful, but I had a little discomfort around that.
And that was the one
I think these
point
things have to be very tight and well planned,
And in our planning, that was the one area, like, we went through item by item, what exactly was gonna happen. And the small group, that was kind of gray area that we didn't totally flush out, minute by minute, this is what's gonna happen. Bonnie did write it up, and it was sent out as an email, but
Right,
we
we
didn't
also just had an
actually sit
understanding
down.
of who the facilitators were gonna be
Right.
and what information we need to communicate to them beforehand. Like, we didn't
and that
actually
should have
really do
been
that.
done.
Yeah.
I never got that.
That was the
I
gray
didn't get it
area.
till the meeting, and then it was too much to digest, and it wasn't well organized. Right.
Well, but nevertheless, a lot of small groups, I think, were able to recover. I have a letter from Fran describing her experience, which was very positive, which is a
Yeah.
fairly sophisticated
Right.
consumer of these kind of events, who said that small group sessions seem to be more varied in their levels of success. I thought my group were very good. Michael Barsley facilitated and thought we made some useful suggestions. But in Joan's group, questions got reframed in a way that worked against getting the job done, apparently.
That was me.
Wait, what happened?
Yeah. That was me facilitating. And I felt like, what's the question? People had...
And we could, well...
And then Bonnie jumped in the middle of my group and said, use a verb,
I think
use a verb. She came into the
That
room and
might be
interrupted
different
and
people,
said,
different
start with the verb.
experiences, because
Yeah, hold on, let's, one person talking.
Yeah. I felt confused about how to do the group because it was given to me at the moment. And then there was that, people were going, what are we talking about? And then, and Bonnie jumped in the middle of the group and said, use a verb. And, it just, but I thought they came up with good stuff anyway, but I'll take responsibility for that.
Yeah. And we were supposed to meet at 6 and have a training for the facilitators, and that just didn't happen because we were getting ready, so. But you're right, that was, I think, the hole in the whole process.
And the main point is, I'm trying to make, is that next time we do it differently.
Yeah.
That's all. Right. That, we're really clear, we can facilitate, all the facilitators are on the same page, the whole room is on the same page.
Yeah.
People will say whatever they want to say, but at least we frame things, I was still trying to understand what we were trying to do, so, but,
Yeah, I was facilitating too, and it was also difficult because we didn't have a transcriber, so I was
Right.
trying to
I transfer.
make, run the small group and transcribe and, try to get what people were saying. So it was definitely having a facilitator and making sure we have a note taker in each group.
That was the original objective.
Yeah. But we just didn't have enough volunteers.
Well, I think we could have,
Yeah.
and I didn't have any communication from anyone before the meeting, and I was supposed to facilitate, be here, this is a question, and I just think that would be really trying to understand.
Well, I was in your group. I think it was,
That's right,
I
you
know
were
that
my
Joan
group.
was in that, but I agree that we didn't coalesce as a group, and I don't blame that on you or the questions.
I thought the group was
You were in that
fine.
group too?
Yeah, I mean,
That was it, the three of us.
Everybody had, an opportunity to speak. No, there was more of us.
I know, there was the media guy who had.
Johnson was there.
Johnson.
You look like you want to say something, David.
No, I was just remarking that this is sort of like a metaphor for city government.
Yeah.
3 people attend the same meeting and 3 people have totally different
Well,
impressions.
right, and I mean, that goes back to, Michael Barsley facilitating, what Fran had said. I talked to someone else who was in that same group who said, I didn't really get a chance to speak, and it was poorly facilitated. So, I mean, it was...
I did too.
I think it's,
We had the smallest group, and I think it lent itself well to everybody.
Well, I thought that it went along, I was somewhere in between. I didn't realize that Fran was,
Yeah.
like I said, I forgot that Joan was in the group.
And we've been talking about as a planning committee, this is what we want to do, is meet separately and this is what could have went well, this is what could have done better, and make a report for the best practices committee this is what we did, this is how we did it, this is what went well, this is what could have done better, and hand that off, so the next planning committee will have all that information, and hopefully won't have to start, we'll just learn what we did wrong and right.
If you're not gonna come to that, would you put in writing, just a couple of paragraphs?
Yeah, that would be great.
Or just tighten things up and make sure if we need those people, we've gotta have them.
Yeah.
Of course, you don't know.
That was the whole challenge, we didn't know if like 10 people were gonna show up or 100, so.
Well, my thought about the next time we do this, that we really try to go somewhere else completely and try to attract a whole different segment of the community and do some real targeted outreach. So we get new people coming in.
Yeah.
And people who might not normally come. But it's so exciting.
One of the things that I really thought that for a first exercise it went really well. We'll get into that discussion later on. But the idea that I had for more outreach is to go to specific, like if we're really going to talk about committees, invite a cross-section or the chairs of committees to a forum and make that a public, we're going to talk about the committee system appointments, and have that stuff. Rather than going after, I think both. I mean, we can go after people that we haven't captured yet, reached, but also focus people on the areas that they're interested in. There are a lot of people who have had complaints about the committee structure and how it works.
Can I make a suggestion too?
Yeah.
If there's one big group that I think is really underrepresented in a lot of public debates, parents of young children. I would think have at least one forum where you're making it ideal for them to attend as easy as they can in the environment they're familiar with and the time schedule they can handle. Because I hear them missing from so many debates.
So you mean having childcare provided or?
Or even going to a PTA and asking them, what can we do to make it possible for your people to come to one of these things? Like what time, what's the venue, childcare, all the support systems.
Or have a PTO host it.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean,
Did they ever meet?
Well, I'm in the Bridge Street PTO, and they provide childcare for their meetings.
Oh, wow.
So they have a couple of the older kids watch kids in the gym, so
So we could do it there, we could do a modified version.
see if they would allow it.
Well, it's the whole also committee structure. I mean, there's school councils. Every school has a council.
It's elected by the school body, yeah.
You can pull from them as well.
And I'm real interested in doing these reforms and with the Florence Business Club, constituent group that has its own issues that we can probably.
Any other people that weren't there that we want to just note? besides
Everybody else.
Who's
Well,
that?
I guess when I say Florence, I think also the old-timers may have been more active in civic life and aren't so anymore, either because they've done their share and they're retired, or they feel not part of things, feel they belong anymore.
We had Joe Misterka there.
Another group would be youth.
But I'm thinking of, city councilors who were councilors 20 years ago and their supporters. People who still live in the city, raised their families here, grew up here, and grandparents, you know what I mean?
I would love to do like a youth-centered forum.
Yeah.
I know that in Hampshire Heights, there's a youth group, and I have some contact people that run like an after-school program there, but that would be neat to do it with like teenagers. How do they see the city? Do they feel a part of decisions? Are they just totally excluded by their age?
I noticed that the council is going to vote on, if you didn't already, dissolving the youth services.
No, we created a youth commission
Right.
several years ago, which is still active, and that may be.
Oh, so that's going to exist.
But there was this other piece of legislation that never got eliminated, so it was redundant, so that's what we wrote.
Okay.
But there is a youth commission that meets monthly, so
Yeah, so to work that out.
they may
That would
be
be
co-hosts.
really neat. All right, so where do we want to go from here? Again, there's going to be, and I'll forward it to everybody, there's going to be kind of debriefing. We're going to meet at Joe's Pizza, have pizza, and talk about how this went.
Okay. I sort of thought that's what this meeting was.
What was that? You thought that, but not everybody from that committee could make this, and so they wanted, I suggested, well, it's important to have everybody that's involved there. Where do we go from here, Alex?
I don't know. I think we do need to make a report to the committee more than just minutes. I think that we have to draw some conclusions from or, I guess the next step is to, what we wanna do with, or what we think the committee ought to do with the information.
Well, let's go back to something that, we didn't really do concretely, which is, what are the linking points of all these things for some of them? Like, 'cause there are, lines that are drawn between things, and comments that are made, multiple times in different issues.
Mary, got any suggestions?
I'm just looking through it all going, too much.
Yeah.
It's just too much.
That's why I wanted to reduce it. I'm thinking
Yeah.
that it will become clearer when we do that. You sit and look at those and then draw circles. Ooh, it came up under here, it came up under here, it came up.
Well, we are gonna transcribe it, right?
Yeah.
Right, but going back to what you wanted to say, what conclusions do we have about the forum that we can, that you can take back to the best practice committee and report on?
That there's definitely energy in the community to discuss the process, that there is underlying a will of certainly a significant chunk of the city to push this conversation. That that there were a lot of rational suggestions. There were it was clear that people have thought about this and linked and connected things in their mind, and somehow we need to continue to get that, to get that energy together so that we can focus it. The job here is far beyond what we can do, and we need really help. And we need the kinds of people and the kinds of dialogue that this forum produced, the Google group thing could produce if we could figure out a good way to use it.
And I think what Jason was saying earlier, what you were alluding to, is to have a way on this, if we do use the sheet, to say, this is directly comments that came from that, that's in red, and this is the ideas we saw were underneath that. Because I think that he's right in saying that, the hotel is a symptom, there's a problem going on there, and let's talk about that problem so we can address that root problem. We might find that that's a similar problem in all of these other issues.
The obvious problem is that people want to be involved earlier in the process than they've been, and they want to be involved in a meaningful way, and the city council
very clear.
is not the meaningful way to be involved. So before it gets to city council, I don't know if people have been to city council lately, but it's terrible. It's just awful to go there. I don't know how you can do this, David. I'm sorry that if also I've been contributed that, because sitting here the other night when the landfill was discussed and people on the Board of Public Works were being just vilified, just made me sick to my stomach. These are our neighbors and our friends who are doing community service, and to accuse them of just awful. Sorry. But there has to be a mechanism where these major issues that affect all of us can be discussed early in the process before the decision-making gets completed. And I think that's the trend in everyone. The positive when people were discussed at the beginning to the negative when they weren't. But if there's any single trend, that seems to be it. And the sense that the testifying in front of city council does not serve that purpose.
I didn't want to bring it up, but since you did, all of those people who were speaking during public comment were asking for just that. It was all in support of the resolution to have an open forum on the issue. So,
yes, but
I know there are legal issues around it, but
that group has come in late to their mind into the process, so there's a lot of built-up anger over the process. And I think what all of us want is a community that doesn't get to the point where people are angry with one another. So if we want to step back and figure out how, like the landfill is, to my mind, what you guys have to deal with, because it's the biggest thing that's coming up, as is the budget and the closing of the schools. It looks like the schools are working out a mechanism to figure out what they're going to do with their budget next year and how they're going to make that decision about the school. The decision about the landfill, that's like right here, right now, and what can best practices do to make this the best practice?
I've thought about that a lot, and I realize the dilemma the council is in. And I put up, can we use the media to do a really Gazette do a series of stories. The history of the landfill, the problem of waste disposal in Western Mass,
all
the
that
opportunities, all the communities that but I don't know, how we go about doing that. We can't even get them to come to our meeting, so.
Yeah, but that's one of the things that's clearly a problem is the issue with the media. And I think, just on this very simple level of the fact that they're now a morning paper means that their reporters don't stay through till the end of the meeting. So they're not even getting all what happens at meetings out to the citizenry in the first place.
Morning paper?
Well, the Gazette used to come out later, so they had different deadlines. So if you had a city council meeting that went through till 11, the reporters were still there. Now they have to leave much earlier, and oftentimes things don't happen until late in the night, and people don't get that information. But on something
on both sides, in terms of the meetings. Well, geez, maybe we should end our meeting earlier and cut, make the agenda.
Clearly on the landfill, it is, I agree with you that if the Gazette did a really in-depth article, because that's what the general citizen doesn't, nobody understands what's going on. And it's, we're not getting more
information.
information.
The government of being secretive, but it's just, I don't know, I'm sure the BPW has the entire picture, but it's not a snapshot. It's a long story.
Yes, it absolutely.
And it needs to be told.
Well, the substitute, the public, at least as I understand it, the Board of Public Works is gonna lead that citywide conversation. And that's the best that we can do, that's the best we can do. And they can have a full one, and it can get quite a ways. But there's no substitute for having the political leadership in the city lead and foster that conversation.
Well, there isn't, because, I participated in, petitioning against the landfill, so I talked with people who are opposed to it, and they don't want to show up to a conversation that's facilitated by the DPW. That's part of the reason why they wanted to get the city council to facilitate it, because like you said, is that they should be the ones that lead the conversation. But, aside from...
Can't go there. The legal advice, the city has...
And you also have to make a distinction, I'm going to get myself in trouble, but the DPW and the BPW.
Exactly.
The Board of Public Works are citizens that are appointed and confirmed by the council to oversee the staff at the DPW.
Right,
The
and
charter,
I
the
understand
state,
those
so that's
distinctions
the
because
role.
I talked with David Reckow and I had, said, I think it's fine if, it's the BPW that, is conducting those meetings as long as everybody shows up, and that would suit, my idea and purposes for having a conversation, but it doesn't suit the rest of the people.
I want to get back to Mary's original comment, and I wasn't there, but I can imagine what it was like, where it was just seeing public officials being vilified. You have to look at why is that happening, and that's happening because there's been a failure to communicate, that the public officials have to, look at what could we have done differently to not be treated the way that we have. And you can't say it's all our fault, because there needs to be some civility, and people need to check in and say, gee, how am I behaving? And the public that comes and is attacking. But still, that's a lesson. That's a cue that something went wrong here. People are coming in and screaming at us or calling us names or whatever in the name of vilification they were doing. There needs to be some self-reflection about that.
Well, I think, what David is saying is the distinction really needs to be made between the Board of Public Works, who are citizens, and, Paces, I know that, you're saying that people won't come, but I think that the distinction needs to be made to those people that the Board of Public Works are just like us. They're citizens who are trying to make the best decision. The DPW is trying to make its best decision as the workers.
I understand that, but, other people don't. And with all of these issues that have happened, there have been people within the city who have been drawing a very thick line and labeling one side of that line city and the other side us. And,
And the whole, I think the whole purpose of this is to bring those together. It's not an us and them situation.
Us.
We are us, exactly. I mean, this is our town, this is our community, and we need to bring it together, and that's, I think, everybody's hope for best practices, is that we will reconfirm that we all are working together for something.
And I think it's a lot easier to vilify people when people don't know each other on like a personal level, so I think doing things like this where it's more of an informal, people got to, it's not like people weren't just sitting behind a desk and like had that kind of armor on, people were actually mingling with each other, sitting around in a circle, talking with each other. Things like this process can help humanize a lot of people that are seen as like the administration or as them.
I just also want to say, because we really should get back to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
topic,
yeah.
but as someone who has to sit here, I'd love to be able to respond to people, but I can't, and I can't imagine what it would be like if I can't imagine what would happen if we were allowed to respond, because you have 9 different people, and it could go on. So, but each one of those people can call me on the phone. I'm in the book. The public comment session is a little stilted. People can come and offer comment to put it on the record. That doesn't preclude them from every one of those people can call me on the phone, can have a 2-hour conversation with, it's not like that's the only vehicle for getting information to your counselor. I'm sure, Alex, you probably had long conversations when you're on the council with people. Outside of me, people can call you, lobby you, tell you their opinion. So, again, it's just more, but again, if we can create more opportunities for people to do that, who don't feel comfortable to pick up the phone or
Yeah, well,
whatever.
I think that's something that could easily be done, which is just, I don't know if it's unrealistic, because, there's, this city councilors already have to sit through, hundreds of meetings, but, I don't know, having a monthly meeting where the body of the city council would be there, along with other people who are interested, where there could actually be dialogue and communication on these issues.
We've talked about doing that. We've done some forums before. We did it on the Community Preservation Committee when the CPA passed, to talk about and get feedback from people. We did it for the Best Practices Committee when we were trying to figure out how we were going to come up with, the final look of the committee. We had a forum at the Bridge Street School. So I agree. Anytime we can have like a pro forma session that's not in this format, and the mayor's not there, it's just the council, and we can have an exchange, I'm all for that. So,
I'm not sure.
but again, we're going into substance instead of talking about what the working group should recommend to the.
So I want to get back to major themes, and I know you probably have to go soon.
By the way. I agree, what Alex said, I think it's a good thing to take back to the community, that it's generated all this energy and enthusiasm, and we want to build on it, and it's fun.
And I think we can also say we're looking at the underlining problems underneath these issues and trying to look at patterns and themes in that. And, yeah, we would need help doing that. But I think that once it gets all transcribed, we can go through the process of filling these out. And I think it would be helpful if we did it with a group of people like we just did, because people are going to have different viewpoints of that same thing. And that'll help make this a more usable and truthful document. But I think that, we started to identify major themes. I think we could just brainstorm a list right now. I don't know if that would help us get started.
I actually have a strong recommendation that I think would be really good, is that maybe planning a best practice meeting just around discussion of this. You have it, taped over here wherever you're going to have the next best practice meeting, and invite as many of the people who were at the forum as possible. You get the list. No? Why not go?
We need to
Well, we
respond.
keep doing it, we're doing it.
I would like to keep
Yeah.
Lisa's made a recommendation that we now, we're in the second hour of the meeting, that we come up with a report. That's the ostensible reason for this meeting, is to make a report to the full committee. So, and I agree, and I think that going through and picking out the item would be a good start. I'm happy to work on that for.
Maybe those of us who are taking different pieces of transcribing can start the process of identifying with the pieces that we've got, themes. Does that make sense? And then we can put it together as we build it, we bring them together. Does that make sense? No?
It makes sense, but I also think that we need to, I I agree
do it as,
with Jesus that the committee, it needs to be a committee process,
Yeah.
so that we're all on the same page and we all have it.
okay.
Because otherwise, if, you know, like you said, if three different people look at a panel, they may come away with three different
Right.
interpretations. I think it all has to be.
I think that, part, and I'm willing to do it, is to, for our next full meeting, that this stuff be on the walls. Whether we look at it or not, that it's, you know, there so that everybody coming, and plus we'll have the TV there, I hope.
Or a transcription, and a transcription.
And the transcription, both,
Yeah.
but we have the original document as well
When's the next meeting?
displayed.
It's the 4th, and we haven't set on agenda,
June
you know,
4th.
purposely, so we could make this the agenda, for the next meeting. To just try to tackle this and come up with themes as a group, we did publicize that meeting at the forum,
And
so
we were going to talk
probably get a
about
lot of people.
subcommittees also.
Yeah,
Talk about what?
Subcommittees.
but I think the subcommittees will come out of these underlying issues.
Not so sure, no, just not sure.
I hate to throw this other little part in, but what about the smaller group reports? Has anybody gone through those and?
I've offered to take those, and those are, I think, lying over there. I offered to transcribe that.
That's a little easier because it's already on this one.
Okay, well, then I just had a outside random question, which was, I think we wanted to transcribe all this, so when is the time gonna be, so that,
I'd say we just get started now.
okay. So we're gonna do it after this meeting, whoever can stay for that?
I'm
I'm
thinking
leaving in
those
10
three in the small ones,
Okay.
and I'm gonna do it at
So,
home.
so
When I have a chance to do it, certainly before the
so you're
meeting,
doing
before
these three and then
the small group.
small group
And
discussion?
this, just because I don't have a.
I really don't wanna cut this, so I'd like to, I'm gonna roll this and take this,
You'll take this one?
and I'll transcribe this one.
How long can you stay right now?
I can offer
Yeah.
to do, for like the next half hour, do some transcription.
Is that too long, Alex?
No, it's not too long, but are we at a point where we have a report for the committee?
I think so.
Yeah.
So this is what I suggested to you before, there's a lot of
Committee also
energy,
was there, too. so-
there's a lot of energy behind this. We can also
By the way.
hand them the packet that the working group makes. This is how we did it, this is what went well, this is what went wrong, this is for the next committee, that can be part of that report.
Right, and the working group, you're all gonna meet, and you're gonna,
We're gonna
get
generate
more
that.
feedback.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe recommend the next step, next forum, and
Yeah. And I would think next steps for this is to look at the themes and come out, kind of digest this using both the transcription
Which
and the
Jason
exhibit.
could email this, because I'd like to.
I bet he could.
Yeah, you said you could.
I don't know how to reach him.
I do. It's part of our email list. Jason's on our email list.
Oh, Wendy, Bonnie does have that written, like, typed up, like, we transcribed it from a typed copy that she had, so.
Okay, so do we wanna do that for the next 20 minutes, transcribe? I think we could get a good chunk
Yes,
done.
I'm happy to do that.
So when you say transcribe, what do you mean?
You're gonna sit and write it up now, by hand?
Yeah, handwrite it.
And then
All
will
right,
it be
I'll be right
typed
back.
too, or no? Will it?
And I'll stay late.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
see,
do
that's
that
the
one
point,
time.
I'm gonna go home and type it on my computer.
So that would be transcribing twice, transcribing to a piece of paper, then
Yeah,
to the computer.
yeah, that's why I'm wondering why you wanna do that now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna stay, you might wanna, can go back to some of your early conversation about themes and stuff, but I'm
Yeah.
gonna leave, and I'm gonna take those three things
Okay.
in the small group.
That's great.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Unless you want us to look at it? And is someone gonna take that?
Yep.
Because Alex said he'll take this.
Oh, Alex is taking this whole.
I would imagine he's gonna take the whole thing, but,
I think he just meant this, and hope, let's see when he gets back.
yeah,
I'm willing to take that one and transcribe it.
okay.
I can just
See, I don't think it will take
watch
that
the
long
Red
sitting at your
Sox and
computer
sit at
and,
the floor and
yeah,
Yeah.
do it.
I just don't,
I'm a fast typist.
Okay.
so.
Okay.
yeah,
Thanks.
I've done this. But it is nice to save them in all the
I can help.
colorful,
Yeah, I think
emotional glory.
taking pictures and posting that is a great idea.
Well, I'll see how they come out.
Yeah.
Because that may be an issue. Some of the lighter, like people who wrote in pen, that may be hard to see.
And did you make a link to Adam's blog? Because people can,
I didn't,
go there?
but again, I've been having trouble adding
Yeah.
stuff to the site, but they're working it out. They just
Okay.
moved the website to a larger server, which is gonna be good. It's gonna allow more content, higher bandwidth, but there's been some glitches because some of the administrator functions got screwed up, so.
Did someone give a report basic general feedback on.
And I'll send you when that meeting's gonna be if you wanna come, if anybody wants to come.
And things like the evaluation, those can be scanned in, I mean,
That's true.
the city has the city copier, remember the one up in City Hall that you're allowed to use?
Uh-huh.
You can run stuff through and it'll just, instead of copying it, it'll PDF it
Wow.
and email it to you.
And that's
So-
pretty easy to do?
Yeah, well, Lynn's away right now, but when she gets back, I mean, she just would run it through and it'll turn it into a PDF
That's
and
amazing.
mail it to you. That's great.
Okay, so I can volunteer to take the evaluation forms and turn them into PDFs and email it to our group.
Just so it can be posted, we
Yeah.
can put all that information out there.
That's great.
So, I wish,
The wonders of technology.
I don't think this is a little too big or we can feed this through it, but
That would be great.
I'm sure,
Somebody could.
Paradise Copies or somebody could probably run it through one of their architectural drawing
Yeah.
things, but the PDF would be so large that most people couldn't,
We have the parking lot stuff also. That should be in there. Do you wanna do all of that? I don't think it'll take too much. If you need somebody to take off, there's no help. Start doing it and realize you have to take off. Is this okay to take now? Okay, let me see what's over there. Cool, thanks for coming.
Oh, sure, thank you.
Jason, just so I have it in some
Yep.
sort of, I'm trying to keep minutes here and talk at the same time,
Yeah.
so.
So we were gonna distill all of this information into a more readable format. So we're gonna take pieces of it and transcribe it. And then the working group is going to make a packet for the best practices committee about what went well, what went wrong, the evaluation. And then at the next best practices, we'll just disclose what we did today, and I think we're gonna recommend find the themes of all this information using a worksheet like this.
Bring it to the June 4th meeting, so that'll be at the June 4th meeting.
Yeah. I don't know that we won't have the themes by then, but, and we could do that at the June 4th meeting.